and how they're approaching safety in our neighborhood. Then we'll transition to our Erle, who is our chair of the safety committee for the Magnolia Community Council, and he'll talk about what we've been discussing as a council about Block Watch and how there's some great actionable things that we can do as a community to really aid in safety and support of our neighbors. And then finally, we'll have Barb Biondo, who's here with us, the liaison to SPD. Hi, Barb. And who will teach us how to set up block watches and talk about the Block Watch program with us. So tonight's really about understanding what's happening and focusing on what we can do as a community. This really speaks to what we've heard. If you've joined our last couple meetings, we've had speakers speak on the immigration crisis. And one of the key things that all of our speakers have said is the best thing that we can do to keep our neighbors safe is to get to know our neighbors. And so we're going to continue that theme forward tonight. So we just have a little bit of business to do before we get started. So I first wanted to welcome, we have members of the Magnolia Chamber with us tonight, Anne and Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. We've been working really closely with them on the safety topic, but other topics as well. So it's been great to have a partner with them and have them here tonight with us to share the impacts to our small businesses. And then I also want to thank Councilmember Kettle for joining us tonight as well. So it's great to have you here in person. We know that this is an important topic for you, so you'll be able to hear firsthand from our community. So we really appreciate your presence here tonight. So first of all, just some quick reminders. So I wanted to mention, let's see. First of all, I forgot to mention our meeting is being recorded. And if you shared, and we'll be sharing the recording after the meeting. And if you missed last month's discussion and you want to see it, that is also posted on our website. A couple of community updates, and I'm actually not going to speak too much about this because Rebecca is going to speak to it in her remarks, but the Seattle Parks has released some new information on pickleball and racket sports planning. And we've posted all the information on the Magnolia Community Council website. So there's opportunities with the Parks Department to provide feedback. The first opportunity is going to be this Thursday at the Board of Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, the 23rd at 6 o'clock. So if you go to our website, you'll see that information and how to register and participate in the meeting if you're interested in doing that. And the other reminder I wanted to make was I had sent out in our April newsletter a couple weeks ago information about the Queen Anne Community Pool closure. And Queen Anne Community Council, we've been working with them on this since it impacts both of our neighborhoods. And they have set out a survey to collect community information. So if you're a pool user, either with Munger or the Queen Anne Pool, please take a minute to fill out that survey. And you can also find that on our website as well. And then once we gain that information, we'll be working with Councilmember Kettle's office and Parks Department, and we'll have more information on that in the upcoming months. Now, finally, just a little bit of council business before we move to our speakers. Is there a motion to approve the March meeting minutes that I sent out last night? Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. Meeting minutes are approved. So first, we're going to move into our city council updates. So we're going to start with Rebecca, who works with Councilmember Kettle, and then we have a new representative tonight for Councilmember Strauss's office. Emma's going to be joining us to provide the update. Thanks, Rebecca.
Hello, good evening for once, coming at you live instead of from the big screen. So I'm going first because I do have a lot of updates to give, and I just thought that that would be a little bit fairer to Emma if we hit all of the issues that y'all have at the beginning, so that way you're not like... So, first and foremost, Councilmember Kettle is back from his Ireland trip. He went to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Seattle-Galway Sister City relationship. The Galway delegation sends a team to visit us every year because we have a little thing called Irish Heritage Week. You may have heard of the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which Councilmember Kettle got to be Grand Marshal of this year. But the last time that we sent a delegation to Galway was in 2014 with then Mayor Ed Murray, so you can probably understand why it was definitely time to update that information. So with that, we're back in public safety. We have a public safety committee on Friday. One of the things we're going to be talking about is going to be a presentation on community violence prevention. So this is obviously a very relevant topic for everybody in this room. And then next Tuesday, we have another public safety committee. So, you'll really be getting a double dose there. And one of the things that we're going to be talking about that is care and alternative response. I recognize that I might be speaking a little quickly. Do I need to slow down? Amazing. Okay. So with that, let's go into racquetball. So I've already spoken with some community members about the proposal that Parks has put out. I would just like to stress right now that it is in fact a proposal. It is not set in stone. So there is going to be a public comment period in the Board of Commissioners meeting, as Amy mentioned. There's also an online public comment period that's basically live between now and May 11th. That is a Monday. So if you were like, crap, it's May 10th, what am I going to do this afternoon? Have you considered submitting a public comment about the racquetball proposal? So if you are very pro pickleball or very pro tennis or just pro racket sports in general, this is a great opportunity to get your voice heard. One of the things that really counts for these types of public comment periods is the amount of comments. So if you're just like, oh, I know that the Magnolia pickleball folks are sending in a letter and that's all that needs to happen. Well, the letter is helpful, but it is also helpful for you to be like, I love tennis and I get really annoyed at the pickleball noise when I'm trying to play tennis. Or maybe you're a pickleball player and you're like, I love that my games are 10 minutes, but those tennis players over there, they're playing an hour-long game and there's like 10 of us and two of them. Ugh. All of these comments are valid for the public comment period, so please submit for the public comment. If you are signed up for our newsletter, which if you haven't, you totally should be, we're going to be including a link to that public comment survey directly, as well as a link to the draft proposal. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. And then I'm pretty sure that Amy's really good about newsletter sign up link. Amazing. So that's that. Here's the Queen Anne pool closures. So our office has been in conversation with the Parks Department since basically January of this year. I know that there was some frustration from the pool using community over how long it took to get a decisive answer from Parks about what the problem with the pool was, and the plan was to fix it. They did finally release their plan to fix it at the end of March. The reason why it took so long is that it took them a really long time to identify where the problem was. Due to the age of the Queen Anne pool, it's over 100 years old, when they were designing the piping infrastructure way back then, they designed it in a way that we would find confusing to our modern lens, in that they have both inflow and outflow pipes going into the same area. So in a modern pool, if there's a leak coming in from inflow or outflow, it's very easy to isolate that problem and to fix it. But because this is a historical pool, you have to shut down the entire pool, drain it, and literally go into it to find where the leak was happening. And the leak was to the tune of 400,000 gallons a month. So in case you're wondering, the Queen Anne pool was leaking the equivalent of 4 Queen Anne pools a month. So Parks now knows what the issue is because of the age of the pool and because of the style of the piping and the mechanics that make the pool work. The pool is going to be closed for 18 months while they work on it, which is awful. It is very much a denial of a public amenity. I am right there with you. This is something that is very difficult because, especially if you are a swimmer, especially if you are training in to be some kind of professional, whether it's high school professional or actual professional swimmer, being denied access to your community pool is an awful place to be. The flip side, in what we might call city planning time, is that 18 months for a city project is actually lightning fast. Parks has the money to fix it. It's coming out of the Metropolitan Parks District. So if you're ever wondering why do you have to pay this tax for the Metropolitan Parks District, well, part of that tax money is going to repair the Queen Anne pool. Part of the length of time that it's going to take to get it fixed is the permitting process. which I'm sure everybody in this room is aware that the permitting process in Seattle is not the fastest thing in the world. So we have actively asked parks to lean on our office so that we can try to expedite that permitting as much as we can, whether it's just being like, hey, SDCI, can you bump that up like a little bit more, a little bit more? Yeah, or anything else. So we are on this. We are going to be working on continuing to connect parks to the community. I'm also actively in conversations with parks about some of the other ways that we can try to diffuse some of the community need versus the community lack. It is going to be a process, and I make no promises because I don't want to promise anything that I cannot personally deliver. But what I can promise is that this is an issue that I will be continuously checking in on. And the other thing is, now that we know what the problem is, it should theoretically be easier to get somewhat regular updates from parks about where they are in the process. So that's what's going on in District 7 and obviously part of District 6 with racquetball. What questions can I answer for you? Yes.
I mentioned to you before the meeting here, a bubble over the longer to turn that into more of a year-round thing.
Mhm.
Instead of being in an hour, to perhaps see bubbles elsewhere, just something
Mhm.
along with the fix it. We might have a Councilman Kettle pursue.
Just for those on Zoom, I don't know if that was heard. Earl Cohen was talking about potentially installing a bubble over the remind me the pool. Okay, the pool in Magnolia. And as I told Earl before the meeting, that is something that I will be bringing up with parks. Uh, like I said, I make no promises that I cannot personally deliver, but I can promise that I will talk about it with them. Any other questions, and it can be anything related. It doesn't have to just be the Queen Anne pool or the racquetball. So if you have a question about public safety or a question about what's going on with some of the other council business, I am happy to attempt to answer. So the actual strategy is called the draft racquetball strategy, and I believe that's because both tennis and pickleball are technically racquetball sports. But I have no idea if that also counts for like badminton or some of these other ones. Yes.
It's just pickleball and tennis.
Okay.
It's racket sports.
Racket sports. That's probably a better way of putting it. But yes, I went by the city framing, which can be interesting. Any other questions?
Thank you,
All right.
Rebecca.
Amazing. Emma, you have the floor.
I didn't know I'd be coming up to a podium. Hi, my name is Emma. I just started working with Councilmember Dan Strauss. I'm the interim district director while Joel is away doing National Guard training. So I'll be here for until the end of July. I'm born and raised in Ballard, and I currently live in Magnolia in Councilmember Kettle's district on his side. Um, so I don't have a whole lot to report other than Dan Strauss right now, he's in Norway doing sister city things to do with Ballard. And he wanted to say thanks for the great comprehensive plan work, and that the next meeting will be the first or second week of May, and that the visitor center needs a full rebuild, he says, unfortunately. And Anthony, who's our policy advisor, if any of you want to talk to him, he's working on the comprehensive plan. I can give you, I have some cards here with Councilmember Strauss's email and Anthony's email and Jesse, our chief of staff, if any of you have questions for them. And then hopefully the next time I come to one of these, I'll know more of what's going on. This is my second week, so. Yeah. Okay.
2 weeks. That was pretty good. We appreciate that, Emma. And she came in person too, which is great. Um, Okay, so now we're going to move into our main topic for the evening, which is neighborhood safety and block watch. We really appreciate our partners from SPD joining us here tonight to speak with us. And, and I'll just say, as we've been working with the chamber through this issue, we've really appreciated the responsiveness of SPD whenever we reach out to them and need their support. Um, to help us make the most of our time, just by way of our meeting, we will have our speakers share their information and then hold questions to the end of each speaker's section. And we want to really take advantage of this opportunity for SPD to hear from our community members. This is an important part of why we're all here tonight. So we will do the best to get to as many questions as we can. But because we do want to keep this to a 2-hour meeting, we may not be able to get to everybody's question, but we will facilitate follow-up on questions. So you can contact us through the Magnolia Community Council with any unanswered issues or anything, and we will work with the chamber and with SPD to make sure that we get all the questions answered tonight. So as we discussed earlier, this is just a great opportunity for us to understand what's happening in Magnolia from the Seattle Police Department's perspective, and also from them to hear from us. So with that, I'd like to welcome Captain Marc Garth-Green with Seattle Police West Precinct. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. You said I'm Marc Garth-Green, the West Precinct Commander, and I really appreciate the invite to be here this evening. And I will preface it with this: there's no question that will offend me. So please, I understand there's lots of emotions, lots of things going on in people's lives, and don't worry about it. Just be yourselves, ask the questions. I'll be happy to answer what I can. And if I can't answer something when I'm able to, and I have some resolution, I will come back and share that as well with you. So hopefully you'll let me come back at some point. So just kind of a broad overview, a little bit about me. I've been with Seattle for about 28 years now. Just come over from the Harbor Patrol. For 3.5 years, I was on the water, loving it. Now I'm trying to get my land legs underneath me again as we go. So I've been with West Precinct now for, since September. But let's say 10 years or so ago, I was the West Precinct Operations Lieutenant and the West Precinct 3rd Watch Commander. So I'm very familiar with the West Precinct. And I worked down in the West Precinct years ago when we were in the old public safety building, for those of you who can remember when we had that. So I really do enjoy my time here. So big things, what's our crime looking like? Right. I mean, that's kind of what we're all want to know, what's going on in the area. Our violent crime is down, which is really good for us. There's a little bit misnomer. Sometimes you'll see that our robberies tick up. And really, it's I want to provide some context with that. So what ends up happening is if somebody goes into a store, grabs a candy bar, they go to leave, a security guard or person at the store asks them to stop, and they push by them. That's physical force to retain property. Technically, it becomes a robbery. So a lot of times it's not the robbery that you're thinking of where masked men come in with guns or do something along those lines. It's actually an act from a shoplift that then turned into a robbery. So we try to separate some of those numbers out because we want to try to really focus on the true, what I would call the true robberies. Those masked men with guns. And then we also want to focus on our shoplifting and our prolific offenders in that area so we can work on that as well. So we kind of bounce those two off here. Motor vehicle theft was up in the area here. It is now currently down. We've been working hard to address some of those issues. But the real reason you're all here is because of burglaries. Right? And that's why I'm here to take a look. We know our burglaries are up in this area. All right, they're driving some numbers for the West Precinct, but they're driving concern for me because this is an area traditionally that hasn't had a lot of burglaries. And now we're starting to see a spike. So we're looking to see how we can best address them. We're using our data center to pull a lot of numbers, which I can give you all the stats in the world, but it really doesn't matter because it's really how you feel and how you're affected by what's going on out there. It's not really the number I can tell you. All right. So what are we going to do to help bring these down and to get this under control? One of the things I'm looking forward to doing here is to be deploying some extra officers up into the area. We know our data tells us that a lot of our burglaries are happening between midnight and 5 a.m. So we're going to try to bring more officers up here into this region during that time. We're also going to try to do some operations where I'll put plainclothes officers out. So we're not stirring things up, and we'll start looking at things along those lines. So we're going to try to take enforcement track that way. We're already doing some of that. Just 2 days ago, we had an arrest down at Inner Bay. It was a stolen car, and arrested 2 people from there with keys from several other burglaries. And they've been out kind of stealing for a lot of stuff and then storing it down in the Inner Bay warehouse area down there. So we're very fortunate to get them, because what we look at is when we see repeat burglaries of businesses and then repeats in certain areas, we look to see if there's a kind of a crew work in that area, if you will, right? And then how do we start taking action against those folks? The one-offs are really kind of hard to deal with because we just never know where they're going to pop up. But when we see repeated instances of it in those areas, then we can try to figure out a pattern, and then we can start nibbling away at that like we did with this one. Served a warrant, recovered a bunch of electronic equipment, music equipment, and I know there was a burglary at one with that. We don't know if it's from there yet. We're still processing all of the evidence that we came with that. So we have been serving warrants. Most of our burglaries up here, or a lot of them, are assigned to detectives. The detective handling a lot of our cases up here right now, he's on vacation, but I did talk with his supervisor today prior to coming up here. There is some headway into it, so we're very pleased with that. So we can continue to work on that, possibly getting some suspects identified and then serving some additional warrants, both to recover equipment and then to get evidence, obviously, to prosecute these folks as well with that. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we're going to be doing. I know Barb is going to be talking about Block Watch. One of the other things I would like to offer up here is what we call CPTED, Crime Prevention Through Environmental Design. And what happens is Barb comes out, and again, I'm going to sell her out there. We're going to get her out there for you. She'll look at the businesses, and we look at a lot of different things. We look at lighting. We look at locks. We look at cameras. We take a look at hedges. Are they next to windows? What's going on here with it? Is there something that we can do through an environmental thing to deter the crime as well? And I don't think we've done very many up here. And so I'd like to get a few more done up here in the near future. And Barb's amenable to that, so that we can try to curb those as well, right? Little things make a big difference when we can. And so I want to make sure that we're focusing on those little things, both on my patrol side, but also asking you for help on those ends of getting those little things done too, to help us prevent and then help us to capture folks as well, right? I know we have a lot of car prowls still. We're having too many. I don't like that. A lot of those are around Discovery Park area. We're going to work with parks to get better signage up, work with our media to put out a public service announcement. Again, don't leave anything in your car. I don't know how many times we say it, but we do. One of the other things, and I know this is, it's a difficult thing to ask, is to ask people to call 911. When you see something that concerns you, you see something that's out of the ordinary, please call 911. Now, if you grew up in the generation I did, you didn't call 911 unless your house was on fire, the car fell on your dad, your mom was stuck on the roof because the ladder fell, your brother was up a tree with a cat, and even then you just thought about it. You never called, right? Gone are those days. We need folks to be calling 911. It does a tremendous amount of different things. One, it drives our numbers, our data for us, so it helps me on that as we look to deploy our officers in different areas. The other thing, it helps me when I need to go to council and ask for more officers, because I can show that there's more things going on in the city in that data capture as well. And the other thing is it gives us an opportunity to respond. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, as you will well know, that sometimes it takes us a while to get here. You're a little far out. And in fact, sometimes it takes me a little while to get anywhere in the city at times, but we are coming. It may be a while, and I know it's frustrating. And I know people are like, why should I call if you're not going to be here in a reasonable amount of time? And again, I need those data. I need those things. The other thing with that is you never know when there's an officer around the corner. On Super Bowl Sunday, not Super Bowl, the Super Bowl parade day. No, actually, I lied. It's back to Super Bowl. Let's go back a minute. So Super Bowl Sunday, there was a young lady, Queen Anne Hill, who saw a car, didn't recognize it, was kind of parked in an area. Thought, this is a little weird. She called. Said, hey, there's a suspicious car here. Now, that's something we normally wouldn't get to right away. Just happened to be an officer around the corner on a different call. It was like, hey, I'll drive by. So he drove by, got the plate, figured out it was stolen, brought some more officers in. The car driver woke up, rammed 4 or 5 cars, a couple of patrol cars, ended up driving down the street, ran into a tree. He got outran, dropped a stolen gun, and then was ultimately arrested. And he is a prolific burglar that's been hitting in Magnolia and in Queen Anne and all the way up into Shoreline. So just that 191 call, even though knowing it probably wasn't going to get to for a little bit, we happened to get lucky because we have an officer there. So I understand the frustration of it, but sometimes we get lucky. And so I do ask that you do call for us. The other thing too is hold us accountable, hold me accountable, right? When we're not doing what we've told you that we're going to do, when we can't fulfill our promises to you, then you need to let me know. You need to call us out on those things, right? Because we need to be better. We need to improve with what we're doing with that. And sometimes things get lost. I'll be honest. Just like everybody here, we get busy. You know, we miss something here or there. It needs to get brought back to the forefront, and then so that we can deal with it. So that's all I'm going to say, because I know we've got a lot of questions. So I want to give time for questions, because honestly, I will learn more about this neighborhood and what you need from your questions. I'll tell you a little quick anecdote. One of the first community meetings I went to, I had prepared. I was ready to go. I knew all about the robberies, the shootings, the burglaries, everything. Went in there and they said, yeah, but what about the parking? And I was like, I had not prepared for that. And what I learned from that experience is I don't know what I don't know, right? I think I have an idea, but generally it's going to be wrong. And the only way I'm really going to know is when I ask you and I hear from you folks, hey, this is what we're really concerned about. And then that helps me direct how I deploy my resources. So thanks. And I don't know if you want Barb to speak or just go to questions or.
Let's do questions real quick first. And since I have the microphone, I'm going to ask you a quick question.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned calling 911, but we also, there is how to report crime online. Is there, what do you, because I have always, like when my car was rummaged through, because I probably left my doors unlocked, I just reported it through the online, because Erle on our safety committee always says report everything, even if it's nothing's been taken. So can you speak to kind of the different ways to report, and should I be calling 911 about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I had my car broken in just a little while ago and they stole my chewing gum. I don't know why. I was really upset. I love chewing gum and I was really upset. Okay. So calling, there's a couple different things. So we have 911, the emergency line. We have a non-emergency line as well that you can call and report crimes that aren't kind of hitting that level. We have online reporting, which you can go. And so for a car prowl, if there's no evidence, no suspect information, like just basically you went to sleep, you woke up, your window was broken and your stereo is gone, you know, and you need a police case number for insurance. It's probably really good to do that online, because it will be much faster to get that done than it is going to be for an officer to come out and take that report from you. We also have what we call our iTrue, which is our telephone reporting. So you can still call the non-emergency number. And what they'll do is they'll take your information and either transfer you to an officer who's going to take a report over the phone from you, or what they'll do is they'll get your number and that officer will call you back and then take a report from you. And right now I've got about 42 officers in that iTrue that are working to do that. Some of them are injured. And so a lot of them go there just because we can't put them on the street. They've had a surgery or something along those lines. So we utilize them in that. And then actually we're using a lot of our newer officers that are waiting to go out to field training to take reports. And so they can learn how to take reports. So when we get them into field training, they're actually doing a much better job for us. So we're excited about that. Trying to use everything that we can to the best of our abilities.
Great, thank you. So we have a microphone to pass around. So, and for the people online, if you wouldn't mind just stating your name before your question, that would be great.
Erle Cohen. Quick question, Captain. You mentioned you're intending to increase patrols here between midnight and 5. How are you going to do that when you've got lots of activity down in Pioneer Square and downtown, and those people are making demands for more police coverage during that time?
Yeah, absolutely. No, great question. We do prioritize our calls. Obviously, I think everybody knows when you call 911, we assign a priority to them. Priority 1 calls, we try to get to within 7 minutes, and those are violent crimes in progress, and we do a really good job of getting to them below 7 minutes. And then we have our priority 2s, which are non-violent crimes, but maybe a crime in progress, burglary, along those lines. So our officers are dispatched to priority 1s always first. And this is kind of where it gets a little complicated and a little irritating, if you will. We might have a priority 1 call down in the ID, maybe 12 in Jackson. If there's no officers available, except for the officer that's up here in Magnolia, we're going to take them and send them all the way down there to deal with it. So we move our resources around depending on the need. Based on that, what I'm looking at is I can take people out of 911 calls for a while, for a short period of time, and place them into an area, maybe an hour a night, 2 hours a night. I can pull one officer, say, hey, you're not going to respond to the 911 calls. I want you up in this area doing proactive patrol, driving around. So what we can do is we can take a few of that off. Obviously, if it's a really important call, they're going to go and deal with that, but they're not going to take the other paper calls or things along those lines that we would have. Unfortunately, makes people wait a little bit longer on the other end, but it does assist us with that. And a lot of the burglaries, midnight to 5 a.m. on Fridays and Saturdays, that's a lot of our bar closing, a lot of where we see some violence associated with that. It's also where we see a lot of our street racers. And so we're drawing resources for that, but we're going to attempt to keep some folks up here. And on that note too, I am looking for a location where officers could go during those hours, what we would call like a storefront, but not really a storefront, where we'd be answering questions, but a place where the officers could get out of their car, go in, write a report, use a restroom, things along those lines. So working with the mayor's office and others to see if there's businesses in the area or folks that have space that we could actually get. What it does then, it means the officers don't have to drive all the way back to the precinct. They can stay in the area longer with us. So we try to do those in places that are farther away from the precinct. If you're 2 blocks away from the precinct offering me a nice hotel room, it's not going to work, right? It's too close. But up here, we know logistically we're a little farther away, right? So how do we best serve that?
I was also just going to mention for those online, feel free to put your question in chat. Next question.
And I'm going to be rude and take notes too when you're speaking, so.
Well, thank you, Captain, for coming here tonight. My name is Patrick Banaski. I'm a resident here and business owner in Magnolia. First, maybe just give an update where City of Seattle is on hiring new police officers, and then how does that impact or get allocated to the West Precinct? And then I guess my second question is, you said, we're certainly trying to catch criminals. What can we do as a community to make sure the criminals who are caught stay in jail?
Oh, outstanding question. So first off, hiring. We have been doing a record pace hiring, which is why I have so many new students that aren't in our field training officer program yet. I only have enough training officers, so we have to rotate people through that. I believe we were well over our attrition rate. The number I had heard, don't quote me, was about 165 that we hired. One of the interesting things is it takes about a year for a police officer to go through the academy. Now, the academy is a state academy, so it's about 6 months state academy. Once they come to the Seattle Police Department, we take them for about 2 months and teach them the Seattle way, right? We have them meet with our community groups, right? We have them go out and meet folks out, just neighbors out in the field, right? To see what our community is. We train them on Seattle laws. And how we want to interact with people, our use of force, our de-escalation policies, our crisis intervention training. We introduce them to LEAD and to other programs that are out there. So it takes about a year before we can get them out into the field. Now, during that year time, we still have our regular retirements and separations of folks going on to different things that they want to do in their lives. So that number, while it looks really big, at the end when we finally get them, they have to make up for everybody who left, and then we go on to the positive side after that. So they're dispersed between the precincts based on call volume and need. Again, why we ask you that you call. So if West has a bigger call need, then what happens is Chief Brown will send me more of the newer officers than the other precincts. Then I allocate them on the watches and distribute them through the districts of where they're going to work. So that's kind of how the staffing works. Secondly, you asked about how we can keep people in jail longer or at least hold them accountable maybe better accountable for the things that they are doing with that. So that is a huge question as we all try to grapple with that, with the balance of dealing with mental health, drug addiction, and then criminality as well. And what is the best course for that? We work very closely with the city attorney's office to try to find the best solution for the problem. The best way, I think, with that is to ensure that when things aren't going the way you believe that they should be going, is then to have that discussion, write letters, invite the city attorney here to see what cases are going to be prosecuted. They have a very different filing standard. It's an interesting thing I learned many years ago. You have the law, but then you have filing standards. And filing standards are a little different than the law. They're things that attorneys put on there so that they, as they triage cases, because they can't take every case just like everything else. They're limited on their folks as well. So they look for certain factors and things along those lines. And sometimes we don't understand them. And those are best to then for them to come out and explain some of the things that they're doing. So I would encourage you to ask those questions of those ones as well. And, one of the big things in Seattle is the best thing about Seattle to me, and I've been here for a very long time, is the heart of Seattle. Seattle is a very, very caring city. And we have a lot of money in here that we give to our resources and a lot of resources here to help people. Right. And so, unfortunately, sometimes we draw folks to the area to take advantage of those services as well. Right. And that kind of depletes some of our resources and what we need to do with it. So keep caring, keep thinking, and we're going to try to do the best we can with that. But again, hold me accountable. Hold our city attorneys accountable, hold our city council. I know Councilman Kettle will agree with me on that. And the mayor, I mean, we let things slip from time to time and, we need to be asked about it. It's perfectly okay. Thanks. Other questions?
Yeah, hi, my name's Chris Hunter, run a business in Interbay, and I heard you speak about asking for more resources once burglaries and crimes are committed, and you talked about spreading some out around. One of the problems that we're seeing in the business sector in this area is what happens after the fact, investigating the crimes themselves and getting feedback from the police department. So we're kind of aware of what's happening and getting some progress reports. We're working very directly with a current detective, and he's doing the best he can, but they're very overwhelmed and understaffed. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we build back, our staffing levels during COVID and after went down dramatically. And as we build back now, we needed to keep patrol the 911 folks. We need to keep more of our folks on the street to answer those calls. So we brought our detectives back into patrol to keep those numbers up. What that did, unfortunately, the byproduct of that was less detectives to do follow-up on cases. So we've pushed some of that follow-up to patrol officers to try to do a little more themselves. We're engaging with different data platforms. We have a new one which is called Bulletin, which is going out where officers can put in bulletins from, I just went on a call, there was a burglary, here's a picture, and it goes out locally. So we have folks over in Bellevue, Kirkland, Tukwila who are on this as well. And so what we try to do then is like, hey, I've got a match to this, and it will automatically ping you if you enter one. And somebody else enters something very similar, it'll ping you that, hey, there was something similar. So we're trying to leverage technology as best we can to assist us with the shortfalls that we have in our staffing as well. With that, our detectives are working diligently, as you say. They are overwhelmed there. As we build back to our patrol staffing numbers, we are moving people into our detective units. We just, in the West Precinct, we just sent three of our folks from patrol back into detectives to assist in those areas as well. So we're doing that. We're also trying to do different things in the sense of we're sending officers for 30 days, what we call a 30-day on loan period. So I'll send an officer to go work in the robbery unit for 30 days, and then they'll come back to patrol. Now, they bring back a lot more experience of how to investigate things, and they also are able to go and assist those other units at later times when they need additional bodies for different things, when their calls go way up in those. So we're trying to do different things in different ways to synergize those effects and to have our folks doing more out there.
Hello, my name is Lori Tice. And my question is, how many reported commercial break-ins have there been in Magnolia in the last 12 months? And of those, what percentage resulted in arrests or referral for charges?
Okay, I do not have those numbers with me, but I will get back with you to find out exactly. I can tell you what number I have for this year is 57 burglaries up here in Magnolia. We had a very big spike in January. It leveled out in February and then went back up in March. So I do know that. I have those numbers, but I don't for the 12 months. But I will look into it for arrests and referred charges.
Do you know about the percentage of arrests for this year, those numbers?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah. And a lot of it is simply because it takes us a little bit of time. Sometimes we get lucky and we arrest the person on scene. Sometimes it's like down in Interbay, we arrest this person and then we're able to tie several different burglaries. But that could be a couple months after the fact that we're able to close those out with that. But I will get those numbers.
My name's Teddy, and I'm here with Patrick. We're opening a business in the village, and we've talked to a lot of businesses that have been broken into, so we're just really nervous at this point to open in the next couple weeks, but we're excited too. But on the nervous part, you know, we've done the things where we're having someone come in tomorrow to walk us through the things to do to our windows and doors from the Seattle Police Department, which is great. I think that's a great program. One thing, we also got some cameras, so Patrick is alerted on his phone if our alarm goes off, let's say. What happens if our alarm goes off and we can see the person in our space and no one's going to help our business? Like, I'm worried that he's going to pick up his golf club and go down there, and I just don't know. I know you can't tell us that we can do that, but it is kind of a thing. Like, I'm hearing that people are sleeping out in their businesses these days and they have guns and things. Like, I'm just a little nervous, I think, we kind of feel like we're on our own, which is no fault of yours. I think there's just a lack of police, and it's just a big bummer.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, great on getting the help from the department with that. There's a lot of things, like I said, that we can do to discourage burglaries and things along those lines. So getting those in place in the beginning, that doesn't mean you're not going to get burglarized, but it means it lowers the chances of it. If you call it to 911, you said, hey, my alarm went off, it's a burglary, and there's somebody in there, that's a higher priority call. It's a priority 2 for us. So we will be sending officers out there. Again, it's dependent on what we have available at the time. Sometimes those do wait a while. So yes, the person could be long gone, but by the time we get there, I would not encourage you to go in there with a golf club, especially the putter. You know, that's not the right club for that. But there are things that are there, right? Being good neighbors. One of the things that my neighbor had done was he put one of those fire alarm bells on for his burglary, and boy, that woke up everybody when that thing went off. Everybody. So being good neighbors. So if I know that there's something loud going on there, look out. Right? Call 911. Let us know. Right? Those are the better things to do with that. Get us involved as quickly as we can. Again, some of that may take a while. I would not encourage people to arm themselves and take action. There's fraught with a lot of disaster on both sides of that equation, and I don't want to see anybody get hurt from that. So I would not recommend that at all. But if it is, and you're there, going out in your car at a safe distance, honking the horn, flashing your lights, letting people know. Most burglars don't want to be there if they know that somebody knows that they're there. Right. So there are things along those lines that if you're in the area and you saw that, that's a great thing to do. Right. Take note of the vehicles that are parked in the area for us, license plates. Right. That'll help us with information as we start looking for it. They got there somehow. They're not going to run down the street with the washing machine on their back. So let's take a look and help us out that way with what you can as well. Video footage is always great. So I applaud you for putting cameras in for that. And then we can get that information afterwards. We can put out our bulletins. We can start looking to identify people, especially in repeat areas like that with the same people. They seem to commit the crimes over and over again in local areas, and somebody knows them somewhere. They've more than likely been handled once before, so that helps us.
What's your business?
Ooh,
Excited. Well,
wonderful.
yeah. Been waiting for that to open.
Yeah. What's the address? Yeah.
Or the vendor we're working with, they did say that because the video helps Seattle police and they'll come sooner. Is that true?
Uh, so yeah, they'll tell you all sorts of things. No, it does in a sense as if you can tell me that somebody's inside, right? As opposed to just an alarm going off. It used to be alarm companies when I grew up many, many years ago, and worked for a security company that alarm companies had folks that would drive around. So if your alarm would go off, they would go there, the security official would go there, verify it. Oh, yes, there's something here. They would be able to do something, but also to call 911. Then they found that it's more cost effective to work out of Dallas or wherever else, and then just call the police from there without any additional information. So yes, if you have video and can say, hey, there's somebody in here right now, then we know it's in progress and it truly is a burglary, because a lot of our alarms are false. More alarms are false than they are actually real. And so that becomes a different story for us as how we dispatch our officers. So yes, in a sense, it does assist that way.
What about cameras like for personal homes, for like Ring cameras and stuff? Is that also helpful to have? My neighbor and I, and first of all, I want to say Crockett Street really showed up tonight, so it's good to see all my neighbors. But my neighbor and I were talking last night about effectiveness of cameras.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anything that we can get a picture of is great. It captures obviously the vehicles or the person, the face along those lines. What I will recommend is if you're going to get a camera system and it's going to be a wireless system, ensure that the cameras that you're putting are not in private spaces. There have been incidences when wireless cameras have been hacked. So if you put one in your bedroom, you might end up on TikTok, right? So don't do those types of things with that. So keep them out on the exterior, keep them down, the family room, focused on the front door, things along those lines, but not in the private spaces of your home. But cameras are very valuable for us.
Well, one of the merchants in the village had cameras and pretty much identified who it was. And it was in a string of 4 or 5 break-ins at the same time. And she was told that the investigation will be nonchalant because the prosecutor's attorney's prosecution is so backed up that there's not a real call of urgency to it. And one more thing about what your comment, there is a possibility of putting up a ring system where you see on your phone if somebody is agitating your exterior, you push a button on your phone, the fire bell goes off and they run.
Yeah, it's an excellent program with the cameras where
Yeah.
a lot of them, I know you can speak through the cameras to people, yell at them like, hey, I see you, different things along those lines. Anything that's going to deter people is a good thing. As far as the prosecution on that, I
Yeah.
can't speak to the prosecutor's office, but I do know that the prosecutors are working diligently. They do have a backlog that they're trying to deal with at the same point as take on their new cases as well. So I'm not aware, I've never heard that before from the prosecutor's office. So I would reserve the answer to that one to the prosecutors.
Well, that
but
came from one of the people that was broken into.
yeah.
And also, one more thing, you said you will, and this kind of goes back to your comment, you'll try to send some officers up between midnight and 5 to patrol. Is there a definitive call to action? Will you be sending them up Tuesday night, 2 a.m, or is there a definitive format, or how do we know when that will work?
Yeah. So there is a definitive on my end is talking with my third watch commander, who's Lieutenant Corey Williams, to address those issues to make sure that we are sending people up here. Now, I can't tell you on Tuesday night at midnight because at Tuesday night, if I have a very large disturbance or street racing, I'm going to be drawing more officers to that, right? And so I don't want to give you a date or time and then not be able to fulfill that. But what I will tell you is we will be putting extra folks up here, and we will be addressing those issues at those times.
More questions? You doing okay up there?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, please. Like I said, no question's a bad question.
If you have a decent image of the burglar or the intruder from a camera, can you post it around the neighborhood and ask for help? Or
So there are some rules about what we do post, and yes, we can ask for the public's help for information. We do it a lot. You'll see a lot more done with violent crime than you would property crime, but we do have the ability to do things like that. A lot of times we focus more internally and with other agencies, again, because most of our burglars have been caught at least once before. So we try to get with our folks first. And when we exhaust those efforts, that's when we generally will turn to the public's help. A couple of reasons for that. If I'm walking down the street and I see a picture of myself, I may leave that area, and now it takes a lot longer to find me again. So there's sometimes where we kind of do a little close hold on some information, but there are opportunities for us to do that. Yes. Sir.
My name is Odegaard. I'm living in Crooked Street. I just want to share experience. I had my pickup parked in the street for about 2 weeks ago and was stolen. So I did as you telling us. I called 911 and waited for somebody. It took a while to report it. And to be honest, I believe that was another story. But I got a phone call 5 days later, one of the officers. He believed that the pickup was used in multiple break-ins. He asked me if I had any specific picture so he can identify it. And last week, he called me again and they found the pickup. So we were able to recover it. So the dialogue there directly with the police officer turned out to be very efficient. And it was a positive story.
Great. No, thank you. I love those.
Any more questions?
And I'll be around afterwards too. So don't feel like if you have one that's more of a private question that you don't want to ask in public, I'm happy to stick around and answer questions too afterwards. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Fred and I live on Crockett. Couple of years back, I had a construction going in, and that was in West Seattle on Dale Ridge. And I had a video and I caught somebody that was trying to take off with the cabling we had. I called 911 and drove to my site, secured it, got back to Magnolia, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I had an officer call me and I shared with him that I had a video. Does he want to take care of that? And he said, no, don't need it. So, what do you guys do with the evidentiary?
Yeah. So I don't know why that happened because we like video. With that, we actually have a new platform that we use, which is called evidence.com through Axon. And what we're able to do is actually just give you a link. So it's not like we have to come out physically and get the video, which was what we used to have to do from you. We can actually give you a link and then you just upload the video or still pictures if you have those for us. But we do really like it, so I'm not sure why somebody told you that it wasn't.
And
was that King County or was that us?
This was this was SPD. And the location of my construction is was about maybe 4 blocks away from the precinct by Home Depot over there. 6530 Delage Way Southwest.
Well, I'm sorry that happened. That shouldn't have. And like I said, we do
I
generally
got
like
there,
video.
Secured the site, came back up, and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. And on the way back, I got a call.
Yeah.
And so absolutely no interest.
Well, I'll make sure I address our roll calls for that because, and I attend them a lot to talk with the officers about what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing from the community, and also finding out from them what they're seeing and what they're hearing as well. Because one of the things I've learned in my position for a long time is everything I say gets filtered on its way down, and everything that they say gets filtered on its way up, right? And that's just the nature of the business, right? So sometimes you have to just go out and walk around and talk to people. I was just over at the bus stop over here earlier, saw some young kids out there having some fun. So I thought I'd just go over and chat with them for a few minutes and stuff like that. So it's always good to get out and to do that.
Okay, we've got one question online and then we're going to do one more and then we're going to move on. So we really appreciate all the time you've spent with us. So question online is, any advice for deterring car prowls outside home, especially car prowlers using key fobs, signals, unlocking devices?
Yeah. So one of the best things is lighting, right? So having motion activated lights that'll turn on when people are in the area, they're close to your cars and things along those lines are really good. Video in those areas is good for that as well. Ensuring your car is locked. I do have a friend whose car has been prowled like 37 times, so he leaves it unlocked because he doesn't want to replace the windows anymore. Not in Seattle. Okay. But I do understand that, but I would still suggest people, lock up. Don't leave things out. A lot of people, gym bag, even though it's got sweaty socks, the people coming by don't know it's just socks in there. And they're going to break your window for it and things along those lines. So don't leave things out, park appropriately. Make sure you're not parking behind the trees and bushes where nobody can see. It's inconspicuous like that. And again, lighting's probably your best friend on that one as well.
So last question. The recent Seattle Police Guild contract with the city had some provisions in there for limiting the use of the care team being deployed. And, there's been some articles about that as well. It seems to me that care team frees up resources for the officers to address crime. And they're addressing, homeless people, people with mental issues that aren't as threatening. So what are you guys doing to make better use of the care team, which apparently the care team union is suing the city over this?
Yeah, so there's a couple things with that. So when the care team was brought about, there was discussions on how they would be utilized, where they would be utilized, and as a pilot project in the beginning to ensure that their safety, the safety of everybody else as well. And so there were some restrictions placed on them. A lot of it just because we didn't know. I mean, that's the reality. We didn't know what we were getting into, right? So under the new contract, there has been provisions that have been lifted. Initially, we said care couldn't go alone. They had to go with an officer. And that's no longer true right now. So in February, we had more training for officers, for our dispatchers as well, as to be able to deploy the care team on their own. Now, what I'll say is where the sticking point becomes is when the folks that are out there that people are being called upon are involved in crime as well. And so if there's a crime, it really shouldn't fall to the care team who are non-law enforcement. It should fall. So if somebody's out there smoking fentanyl, but they're acting bizarrely, they're still smoking fentanyl. That's a crime. The police have to go to that with it. So if we have folks that are just like maybe sleeping on the sidewalk, right, and can't be roused, if there's nothing to suggest a crime going on, then the care team would be the appropriate call for that to go out. And it's kind of like the next evolutionary step. So this is what they're doing now as the care team expands. Gets more folks, is able to do more things, then what I think you will see is more and more stuff being pushed to the care team to participate in and to partake and to do that. It's just when there's a crime involved or if there's a safety issue. The person might be just yelling, but he's swinging a stick. Right, where we don't want to put somebody in harm's way who's not trained to defend themselves or defend others with that. So we have to be super careful with that. I think there is more room, a lot more room for them to expand, but the unions do have to have a discussion about it. There are body of work issues and things along those lines, no different than Boeing. If you work at Boeing and the light bulb goes out, you're not allowed to change it. You have to call the electrician. And if it's too high, he can't drive the scissor lift. So you got to call the other guy to come drive the scissor lift to get the electrician up to change the bulb and go to the warehouse to that guy to go get the other bulb and then come back. Right. So we are a union state. And I know it can be frustrating, but we do work through those processes and they do come to fruition. And I think it's not my union. We have different unions for officers and for commanders, but I think there's a lot more room there. And I think there's a lot more willingness. It just has to be sat down and worked through.
Well,
Okay.
thank you so much. We really appreciate you spending this time with us. And any follow-up, you can send follow-up to me and I'll get it sent out to okay. So next we're gonna have Erle.
Oh, okay. Hey. Oh, I can speak right there.
Yes.
Except I can't see him. Oh, okay. Well, I'll keep this short. Barb Biondo is the crime prevention officer coordinator for the West Precinct. Barb has helped many of us establish block watch groups in Magnolia and elsewhere and visited individual homes, mine included, to identify ways to make homes safer and deter break-ins. With her help, the goal tonight is to increase the number of block watch groups and to establish a network of block watch captains who can share information, not just about criminal activity, but also about emergency issues and City of Seattle actions that are directly of interest to our community. So it's really more than just crime prevention. It is a communication tool for us within the community. So before I have Barb come up, I'd like to call on my block watch captain, Jerry Chihara, just to say a few words about how our block watch works and provide maybe just a minute or two of anecdotes or things that you can share about our block watch, because I think it's a very effective block watch group. Jerry.
Good evening. Earl and I live in the neighborhood southeast Seattle, right at near the top of the bridge. So we're an area that's generally bordered by Gaylor Street, Garfield to the north, Magnolia Park to the west, and 28th Avenue on the east. We comprise a neighborhood on the block watch, about 60 households. And we've been at block watch, an organized block watch in the neighborhood for about, Earl and I were thinking that it was 15 to 20 years. But my memory of it is, I moved into the neighborhood in the 90s and it seemed like, before we had an organized block watch, we had at least an informal block watch group. I mean, we have a really active neighborhood and a great bunch of neighbors. Generally I think over those 15 to 20 years that we've established a pretty good line of communication between neighbors. We communicate well. I don't have to, as a block watch captain, I don't have to initiate all the conversations between the neighbors. I think it works relatively well within the neighborhood where people feel free or welcome to share, common concerns of the neighborhood. And concerns are things that Barb has helped our neighborhood in addressing crime prevention techniques and methods that are workable for our neighborhood. And, you know, we have the same issues that everyone else here has with car prowls and, you know, maybe unwanted visitors in the neighborhood. We share not only the crime prevention information, but our Block Watch also shares other common neighborhood concerns, including, you know, what's happening with the bridge. You know, what is going to happen to that goddamn bridge? Why isn't anybody spending any money to take care of that? Or, you know, we have, you know, the recent, what do you call it, proposed upzoning that affected all of us here in Magnolia, but in every neighborhood in Seattle, we all had our individual concerns, our personal concerns. I think you know the plus side of the positive side of this whole thing is that I think more than the sharing of information, common concerns in the neighborhood, I think it fosters a sense of community in our neighborhood. I think that's a great side effect of the whole thing about, you know, organizing as a block watch. Sure, you know, we're all interested in finding out what's happening in terms of crime and what the trends and what's happening in our neighborhood. We adjoin another neighborhood that's probably about the same household density, about 60 neighbors that have their own block watch, and we share. We often share information between the two neighborhoods, and we gather as neighborhoods to do the night out event every year annually. And so I don't know that I'm not sure if I'm answering your question adequately, but
when people in the neighborhood are going on vacation, I let Jerry know all the time because he's right across the street, but they'll let other neighbors know. And that seems kind of silly on one level. On the other hand, it is a great way to make sure somebody's got eyes on your house. Although while I was gone recently, Jerry failed to be awake between midnight and 5 when somebody was trying to steal copper wire from the manhole cover out front where the telephone and cable things are. And just as an aside, if people don't know, copper theft is huge in this city and incredibly expensive. So, but anyway, that was a good example of just letting Jerry know and other neighbors letting one another know they're on vacation. Again, simple little thing, reaps big benefits. Thanks, Jerry.
Thank you.
Barb?
Hello, everybody. Happy to be here with you. I'm Barb Biondo, the Crime Prevention Coordinator based out of the West Precinct, and I've been in that role about 9 years now. But to give you a little more of my background, I've been doing crime prevention for over 30 years here in Seattle. A lot of that was based as a nonprofit and working on public safety projects in Southeast and Southwest Seattle, grants that back in the day we got from the feds when we used to get grants from the feds, like Weed and Seed that were community-based crime prevention. And then I also managed affordable housing for a while. But I love the role and being in West Precinct. I love the neighborhoods here. And I love this job in particular because I get to work with community. I'm a block watch captain in my own neighborhood, and I'm also co-chair of my own community council. I'm very involved. Community is just part of my DNA. One of the great things I think I was so excited to hear about, I've been to many of the block watch groups here in Magnolia, but I was really excited to hear that you're wanting to expand the program, because I call Block Watch the best crime prevention money can't buy. Because what it is, as you've heard, it's neighbors, knowing your neighbors, basically, and watching out for each other, kind of making that informal commitment, more or less, to be a good neighbor. And it's really that simple, but at the same time, there is a cost involved, and that's time, and that's effort. As you know, any relationship requires some investment of time and effort. It's true of Block Watch too, but the nice thing about it is that it can be what it needs to be for your block, for your intersection, or for, any place in your neighborhood, your business district, where you want to connect with each other and you have a mutual concern about safety and well-being, and you want to work together as a community to achieve that. So it's really that simple. And for those of you, I know there's a lot of people already doing Block Watch here besides Erle and Jerry. I know Councilmember Kettle. And I know, so yeah, how many people are already doing, or would you consider yourself part of a Block Watch? Formal or informal? Yeah. See? Okay. And so, yeah, there. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Mhm. And you can already see, or probably extrapolate on your own, that the more neighbors and more blocks in Magnolia that are doing this very thing, the safer the neighborhood will be, because you will be the ones, you are all the experts of your neighborhood. You know far more about it than I know, or Captain Garth-Green, or even our very dedicated patrol officers probably know. You know who, more or less, if you make the effort and the awareness and you're curious, in a friendly way, you can learn a lot about who's got company, who's got, who travels, who's away for the winter, and things like that. And you don't have to be the kind of neighbors that you're inviting each other over for dinner. It doesn't have to be that close of a relationship, but enough to know that you know what their basic rhythm of life is, basically. And if you feel comfortable sharing, you're going to be out of town with a neighbor, you do that with them. But beyond that, it's really building community. And it's a great tool for the police department. And that's why we've supported Block Watch since the 80s, I think, here in Seattle. I think we were one of the first cities and departments that really embraced the Block Watch program and concept. So it's been going on for a long time. I can let you know it's easy to do. If you have a group of neighbors that you want to get engaged, or you want to get to know your neighbors better, I'll share some information with you, and you can go out and knock on doors and see if people are interested in getting together. That's a good first step. If you haven't formed a Block Watch yet, just reach out to as many neighbors as you feel comfortable doing, and see if you want to get together and meet. And that's the next step. It could be an online meeting, it could be an in-person meeting. I'll come out and go over some basic things about awareness and reporting, and then you can ask questions, and then you all drive it. We're here to support you. We'll provide you information on trends. So one thing I will ask in return of you connecting with your neighbors is doing as Erle and Jerry did, and their neighbors. They gave me at least one point of contact. All I need is your email for that person. And that way I can send out to you information if there's things going on in your area. And then, of course, I will definitely let you know when night out is approaching and ask you to register your Block Watch, because it's a great way to meet the new neighbors that have moved in since, the previous year, and just start bringing them into that community. And, the wonderful thing I can say about Block Watch, and I'm happy to answer any questions, there's a lot of tools. We have dashboards, a lot of dashboards on the Seattle Police Department's website that are very, very helpful, including you can look at and see in the last 48 hours how many police responses have been in your neighborhood. And you can see a little dot. It's not going to give you an exact address. It'll give you a 100 block, but you can see, was that a burglary? Was that a car prowl? What was that call? Was that a disturbance, a domestic disturbance or something? So it's not going to be that specific for privacy, but you can find out what's going on in your neighborhood. And then one more really quick thing is, if you do have, if you've been burgled, if you've been car prowled, if you've seen suspicious activity, we do want you to make a report. We could talk about, the best, in progress stuff is always 911. don't hesitate to make that call. But please circle back with those neighbors and have some way of communicating, whether it's text or email, or you have a Slack channel or something you want to post things, so you can keep that communication going and make it, pretty prompt, because that's like, you can actually call it a force multiplier, because your family or your household's eyes on the problem is one thing, but if you've got a whole block and 16 households also keeping an eye out for a specific activity pattern or vehicle or person, that's, like I said, that truly is a force multiplier. So reporting is important. Dashboards will help you find out what the trends are. And then you have us here. So if I come out and we meet for a block watch meeting, I always will ask Captain, say if I can bring a district officer with me. And he's never said that I can't. So I'm sure we can arrange that. So I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, I will share that with you. And then one more thing I will say is that other neighborhoods have created what they call block watch networks, which is someone in the community takes on a role to be the, a point of contact for the whatever area you want to cover. Queen Anne has done that. West Seattle has done that as well. And it can be an effective way to share information even further than your block. And also it's really helpful when we get information from a network saying, oh, we're all hearing that this is, particular crime pattern that we're observing or suspicious activity. You share that information with us and we share it with patrol. So it's it's a good tool for that regard too.
Are you ready for questions?
Yeah, ready for
Okay.
questions.
And I might actually put Councilmember Kettle on the spot real quick, because he actually started the connected network of block watches in Queen Anne. And what'd you say? You have 43 block watches in Queen Anne. So I don't know if you want to just speak for a minute about the benefits of of the connected network.
First, I want to thank Barb Biondo. I've been working with Barb I didn't realize it was 9 years already.
9 years.
And it's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's super important. I am a block watch captain for my neighborhood. And I think it's so important for the reasons mentioned. But there's also other things to do. I was doing this early on in terms of putting on information about, hey, how about your hardware? Ensuring that the locks on your doors and windows were good. Lighting, cutting back the hedges and the like, leaving lights on. These are all the things you do before even talking about surveillance or, some type of alarm system. There's so many things, but the number one thing at the end of the day still is that connection with people and your neighbors, and they know when you're out of town. They could pick up your mail. I do this all the time. Like at my neighbors at the end of the alley, they're gone a lot on the weekend. They get the Sunday New York Times. I don't let it sit out there for 2 days. I get it, and I take it, I walk it around by their mailbox. It's those little things that make a difference in terms of, what they see in terms of the burglars and the like. If they see a neighborhood that's organized, like all the lights are on, there's cameras, there's no hiding sites, unobserved access to a home and then egress from a home is perfect for them. But if you can take away those things are great. And so that's one of the things I did as a block watch captain. And tied to that, I was working with the neighboring block watch captains, which is interesting from that example, because I was doing the same thing. But what Amy was saying was, in addition to that, in Queen Anne, years ago now, I forget exactly how many years, probably the same time, a little after, we set up a thing where we went out to all the block watch captains in Queen Anne and brought them together. And it's what we call the Queen Anne Block Watch Network. And we just had a meeting on top of the hill at a restaurant, Damani's, and Stan Berneff is our the captain of the captains, if you will. And it's really important about bringing these pieces together because we do talk. And so there's a reason why, for example, Queen Anne, from a public safety perspective, it oftentimes is in better position than other neighborhoods and communities around the city. And it's because of that activeness. And I think it's really important to do this here in Magnolia as well. And these are little things that we've been doing. Just having a public safety committee because that's what I was chairing in Queen Anne Community Council. And we're working with Magnolia Community Council, having Erle sit on the West Precinct Advisory Council. All these little things really help. And so that's kind of like, was that too long? No. So about the, but again, you know, working with Barb, and by the way, it's residents and also businesses. So you can have like a commercial block watch too. And that all those points really apply. And since I have the mic, you know, we've been working really hard with the Real-Time Crime Center. And that's something that we've been pushing. And as you know from the news, there's certain pieces to that are happening. And trust me, I'm fully engaged on it. But we have a Connect Seattle program, you know, where businesses can basically, this is like the big commercial block watch in the sky, where businesses can register with the Real-Time Crime Center. And that Connect Seattle program primarily is geared towards downtown, but it's not limited to that.
No.
And so for the village, for example, if everybody's connected to the Real-Time Crime Center, that makes everything quicker. So if something's happening, you know, they don't have to go out with somebody, a patrol officer, detective, knocking on the door, say, hey, did you see something? Do you have video? No, they already registered. They know right there, so they can call. And then if you have corroborating, you know, information like from cameras and all that, that's where that pride bump comes in. The priority bump comes in. You know, having alarm going off, but then having somebody call and says, I see somebody, that really makes a difference. So having, particularly, like take the village, having them work together as a group on a public safety perspective, and then connect to the Real-Time Crime Center. Trust me, it's a smart move. Okay, that's your council member tip of the day.
Yes. Thank you.
We'll ask you about the bridge next meeting. I know. Questions for Barbara on Block Watch for any of our speakers?
So one of the things that I had some curiosity about is how do you sort of prevent the block watch from becoming next door?
Yeah.
So Nextdoor is an app that is often used to complain. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. So, you know, I'm just curious how that sort of works in conjunction.
I think that depends on how you decide to communicate with each other. I mean, I like to think, you know, Blockwatch is kind of analog in that way. It's really you know, relationships that you have to get to know your neighbors a little bit. And I invest in my own personal Blockwatch efforts in my own neighborhood. I'm most invested in the people that are closest to my home. And that would be the same way if I were a business owner. I'd be, you know, they're the most closest proximity. They have the most value in that sense. But you know, it's definitely you know, the tone. I think maybe you will self-select how you want to organize, and this is entirely the choice of your group, your neighbors group. But it's nice to have someone that's, you know, wanting to be that point person and disseminate information, you know, to and from SPD. It's never limited, but I think, and then having gatherings, night out, I looked it up. This year is going to be August 4th. It's always the first Tuesday, and it is a blast. Queen Anne, it's so hard to get to I can never get to all the night out events in Queen Anne and Magnolia as well. They're just so dense that it's a great vibe. It's a great feeling. It's, you know, it's the community that, you know, we all want to have, but it takes several of us to instigate it. But there are a lot of people that work from home these days too, so you have added benefits of that. It used to be that we had burglaries that were occurring during the daytime. That's not the case. We have people at home, and we've seen those numbers drop. Commercial burglaries it's another animal, and I know to speak to the business owners here. I'm happy to come out and look at your business with you and look at, you know, what you've done to, you know, control access. And we have the 4Ds, 5Ds: deter, delay, detect, deny. You know, we'll look and talk about that at your business. And then, you know, you just want to make it, you know, as difficult as possible, but you also want to trigger a response, which is where your alarm comes in and that 911 call to us. So, it's a little bit different strategy, but as Councilmember Kettle said, business watches are very effective as well. They just sometimes will have different tools that they want to deploy. So,
Other questions?
Where are we in like the external cameras or city cameras? Is that, as a topic, it seems like a year or so ago.
here you go.
Don't go anywhere, Barb. Yes, we have a camera system, a technology program, and with the CCTV cameras and also ALPR, automatic license plate readers. That is going through an adjustment because of our new state law, so we have to be in compliance with the state law. And so I actually had a meeting with Assistant Chief Brown this afternoon, along with Deputy Chief Underwood, and I think I'm meeting with Chief Barnes tomorrow, to say, hey, we need to ensure that those things are being worked, like on ALPR. But for the cameras themselves, the first tranche was basically downtown, Belltown, and the CID. So those cameras were buttoned into place, and they've been very effective. And here's the thing too, and a lot of people will kind of create their own criteria for success, and it is, yes, violent crime, but it's also about persistent crime, which kind of goes to Captain Garth-Green's points in terms of what he was talking about. And here's the thing too, is that it also aids in the prosecution. It aids in doing policing better. People will say, well, we'll go back to having bias and everything else. And I note to people, there was a shooting on 2nd and James. A man shot a woman in the back of the head. It was tragic. But they had that, and the person who was going to interview that suspect had already seen the tape before he spoke to him. If you have an incident and there's like a male of a certain height and weight, nearly 6'3" and well over 200 pounds, right? Whatever it is. And you go out and there's 10 of them, or 10 men, males, or whatever that is. Then the police have to engage all 10. And that's where bias could check in, or some other pieces in terms of the engagement. Things can go sideways because people react differently. But with the real-time crime center, the analysts there working with the 911 operators, and they're engaged with the officers on the street, and they say, hey, no, 6'3", bald head, gray, and he's wearing a jacket. So instead of looking through those 10 people, they go, oh, straight to it. And that's so effective. And with that, the camera capturing all that information too. So I have meetings on a regular basis with City Attorney Evans. This would be a felony. So prosecuting attorney Lisa Mannion on the King County side, because City Attorney only does misdemeanors. It's the King County prosecutor does felonies and above. That aids in the prosecution in order to secure that, that indictment. So these are the things we're doing. And so these are happening in these areas. I did a walkabout in North Beacon Hill into the Little Saigon and those areas. And it's been really effective. And they're engaged. And by the way, those communities want it. You may hear in the news that, oh, nobody wants it. Nobody wants it. Well, I tell you what, the community around Rainier Beach where those 2 young men were killed, they want it. And it's making a difference. Now, that what's also in the news is that we had a second tranche, a second group, and about half of them, just over half, were for the stadium district as it relates to FIFA. And as part of that process, because we have a parliamentary engagement, we had some amendments where we added some, we were working those with the executive, Mayor Harrell's team, for Cap Hill, because Cap Hill was having a lot of issues, particularly in the nightlife, the evening, and then also the area around Garfield, because the shootings are not just limited to Rainier Beach, right there in the vicinity of Garfield. That is being held up right now with the mayor. The installation of the stadium cameras is going forward, but right now, once that's done, they're not going to be turned on, although I am engaging on this topic. And this is in process too, by the way, because this relied on the budget to pay for it. So we had to wait to January in order to put the RFP out to pay for them and so forth. So there was a time piece to this anyways. Like, you know, the cameras for the stadium district are coming in right now. I don't know the exact amount, but then the other cameras were going to come in later anyways. So that's part of the story too. But, you know, bottom line is it is making a difference, and it's being driven, by the way, by data. You know, all these data points, it is where the crime is happening, where the reporting is happening. So I don't expect any cameras of this sort in Magnolia. But this is where, going back to my earlier point, you know, having the businesses and the like working through the Connect Seattle program could be very, very helpful.
Could you please be specific on what aspect of these cameras is under review in relation to what new state law and why?
Oh, because the automatic license plate reader is what I was referring to. And and we did not have a problem because we did our due diligence. We put a lot of work into our ALPR program in terms of, you know, the pieces of the program, the protocols, the requirements, the computer audits. There's so many pieces that go to it. Seattle values in terms of, you know, the length of time and, you know, who can see it. The Real-Time Crime Center only has one sworn officer, Lieutenant Raguso, formerly Captain Britt. And, you know, there's different pieces, and there's, you know, so it's not, because the insider threat was the issue with some other jurisdictions. Like, some officer would get it, some information, take it out, walk it over to federal law enforcement, ICE or whatever.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
But we don't have that here because we built a different system. Now, the issue with the state law is, and we were also working the things in terms of reproductive health care and some other pieces like that. But the state law is very specific. And here's the thing is, most of the jurisdictions that had to shut down, like on the east side and South King County, there were fixed post systems. The camera was on a post, whereas ours were embedded in every vehicle of the police force. And so they're moving all the time. So now we have to work in a way to deconflict those sensitive areas with the system. And that's what's happening right now.
Thank you.
Well, the mic's going around, I just wanted to know too, block watch captains can also be what was called snap captains. And I bring this up because everybody brought up the bridge, is that this is where block watch captains can be helping their neighbors be ready if the big earthquake comes, if there's some natural disaster, being dual-hatted in that respect. And it's really helpful. And because of that threat, we put into the budget for the Seattle Transportation Plan a review on the Magnolia Bridge, because the Magnolia Bridge is past its warranty date now. And to the issue of that emergency preparedness point, we're also, I butt into the system to review about connecting. Is it 34th that comes out of the 30? I always say 34th, but 32nd. And just before you hit the beach, looks like what is an alley, and the street, but it looks like an alley. But on the other side, you have the marina. And so the proposal, the idea is to connect that, like, you know, a turn to get down to the marina. And so this would afford emergency access, first responder access to Southern Magnolia in the event that, with an earthquake or whatever, it could be anything, by the way, that brings down the bridge. So these are like little things that we need to do. So just so you know, those are two pieces that I'm working, and it's, as Rebecca will point out, you just got to keep pushing that rock up the hill and forward. So anyway, sorry, I just wanted to jump in with that. Well, actually, it became related. Magnolia is in many ways like an island. We got 3 roads to make it to Magnolia, and there are 3 roads to leave again Magnolia. And I just wonder, isn't there any way we as a community can use that as well to give signals to people that do random breaking, etc., that you're entering an area that we should be able to detect who comes in and who leaves the area? Is it something we can take advantage of and make our community safer? Signage, that's a little bit hard.
The hubs question.
Yeah.
Are you asking, like, so if the power goes out, We actually have one of our trustees, Bill, is our contact for the Seattle hubs, which, and I should let him talk about it, but they, I'm going to let him talk about it.
That's a very good point. We'll let Bill talk about, because I was thinking as like a block watch cam. You're talking about something different, and
Yeah.
the hub system is.
Well, there is the Seattle Emergency Hub program. It's a network all over the city. We have a Magnolia Village Emergency Hub. It's sort of prepared to set up right there just beyond the village on the South Playfield. And the idea is this is a volunteer staff that will come together and set up sort of a set of canopies in order to collect and disseminate information. And so this is the idea, is that there's these volunteers who are prepared, and we have this infrastructure set up, that this is the Seattle Emergency Hub. And of course, there's seattleemergencyhubs.org. You can look things up there, and you can look up Magnolia Hub, .com, and you can get more information. And of course, what we're going to do in the future is, in the near future at Summerfest, when the Magnolia Community Council sets up, we're going to be there as well, informing people about what's happening with our Magnolia Village Hub. And then on August 8th, we're going to actually practice setting up the hub. So this is, we're going to try to send out the word, get your calendar set up, that on that Saturday, we're going to all collect there. It's behind the backstop there on the corner of South Magnolia Field. And we're going to set up the hub. We're just kind of going to see how it all fits together and how the flow of information and how it all happens. And then the following weekend on August 18th, the hub network across the city is putting together an exercise. There's going to be a hub in the north end and a hub in the central area and a hub in the southeast and another one in West Seattle, practicing this. And they'll be communicating with each other. And these will be bigger, more active things where you get to really play act as to having a problem and going through the process of sharing information and getting information. These aren't food and shelter. This isn't medical aid so much. It's just about information, about collecting information, because, big earthquake hits, we're isolated. Power goes out, you can't communicate. Cell systems crashes, you can't talk to anybody. Can't get to the internet. You have to come to the hub to share information. Brian, he's one of the people that works with us.
Councilman Kettle mentioned the path between the marina and 32nd. Tomorrow morning, 8 to 12, volunteer group is going to be meeting on that trail to help the cleanup. And you're all welcome. You're all invited to come. We're going to be planting and clearing weeds out and improving the trail in the park, but that's just the first step, really, towards connecting all that.
Thank you, Brian. So that's, so just to reiterate what Bill said, so the hub, if there was an emergency, I think our closest one is the community center. So we would go there if we need information. So they have like old school, like ham radios to communicate if cell towers are down or anything like that. So it's not food and water, but it's just a way to get information, find out what's happening, when to expect resources. So it's basically our connection, our lifeline to the rest of the city. Other questions? And all this information is on magnoliacommunitycouncil.com.
Mm-hmm. Hi, my name's Jennifer, and we were watching online while we fed our kids and then walked down. So I hope this is not repetitive, because we missed a few minutes while we were walking down. But where are we in terms of understanding the root causes of these increases in burglaries? And what are we doing to address those root causes?
That will be a question for the captain. I'm going to get punted to him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, yes, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Understand.
Yeah.
understanding root causes of crime. And what are we doing about identifying?
Okay, so a couple different things there. We're looking at the root causes of crime. When we have crimes of disorder, you're mostly focusing on mental health and drug addiction, right? When we're looking at burglaries, property crimes, a lot of that is also drug addiction and other problems because they're looking to get something quickly so they can sell it, so they can then work on, getting their drug of choice with that. So there's a couple different things that we're doing. We work really well together with LEAD, the Seattle Police Department does, so that we're trying to divert people from low-level crimes when it's just, maybe somebody smoking fentanyl on the street, right? It's a crime of disorder. It does harm the neighborhood, but there's no physical harm to somebody other than the person obviously ingesting that with it. So we look to take those folks and get them into treatment, to get them some case management, and we divert them to LEAD. That doesn't mean they won't be prosecuted at some point. It just means generally that we're looking to not prosecute those folks, but actually get them help. When that fails, then there are other things that come into play then with prosecution or different things like that. So we have a large installment into housing, right? Trying to get people off the street because we do know that we do have crime linked to encampments, to unhoused folks that are on the street, right? And again, a lot of that is for sustainment for them. So looking to get them into housing first, but housing only doesn't work, and housing first only doesn't work. It's housing and, right? And that's what we need to do. I did a walk the other night about 10 o'clock down at 3rd and Pine. And I was talking to a young lady down there, and I said, "Oh, we should get you housing. What do you need?" She's like, "Oh, no, I have a house. I have an apartment, but this is my community. These are my friends. I'm not judged. This is where I'm accepted, and this is where I come to be in that community." So one of the things that I think that we need to be focusing on, and we're talking about it with LEAD and others, is as we go into housing, how do we recreate community, healthy community for those folks, not the smoking fentanyl community, but that healthy community with it there, because otherwise all we do is put somebody in a house, but they come right back out and partake of that. So it's a much bigger, complex problem than simply just saying, don't do bad things. But we do know that, one of the biggest drivers we have out there is narcotics.
Thank you. Is there maybe one last question?
Hi, my name's Ron Barb. So a couple quick questions on Blockwatch. Do you have a map that shows existing formalized block watches? And I may be redundant here.
No, actually, this is a good question, and it's going to segue into something Erle wanted me to remind you all of. Because of the possibility of public disclosure, the Seattle Police Department stopped, before I even came to the department, keeping detailed records of locations of Blockwatch groups. What we do maintain is a contact, just a person's, email address and general neighborhood information. However, those of you who have registered for Night Out, you know that you can choose to publicize the location of your Blockwatch to invite people to join you. But we do not keep those specific records of locations anymore, just because there at one point was a PDA for all of the Blockwatches, and that was just something we didn't want to risk in the future. But that brings me to a point. So the Queen Anne Blockwatch Network, which has been, they started soon after I came into this role, the community initiated it. It takes someone in the community, and Erle has volunteered in his capacity as being on the West Precinct Advisory Council and also in a Blockwatch himself, to help gather the Blockwatch groups together in one collective contact that will be maintained by someone here in Magnolia. So that's a way to become a network, and everyone has to agree. So I basically can't share my list of contacts directly with Erle, but what I can do is, and you will get an email from me in the coming days that will say, hey, if you're interested in this, let me know if I can share your email with Erle. But I'll send that out to my entire contact list for Magnolia, which is pretty extensive. And yeah.
For our block watch.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if you have maps for each of them that you just can't.
No, I don't even keep those, but I do encourage people to create your own, however style of map you want to. That way you can see where you're covered and share that with new folks moving in as you wish.
Right. And it's a great way for some of us who can't remember names, to look at a house and see what things they are. Okay. So there are all sorts of things that if we establish this captain's network, we can do as a community and then push out. Okay. And when I talk about the community, that includes the village, the Chamber of Commerce members, and trying to fold them in so that you're all part of it, not just as businesses, but as, part of the community that lives here, like you, Ann. So, yeah. So lots of good opportunities. Please if you don't want to be the block watch captain, find somebody to volunteer. Put them in touch with Barb, and then she can share information with me, and we'll get that set up, and we'll gather and have coffee, or if people prefer a beer or a wine, we'll gather and have our first meeting doing that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So what I'll promise to do is I'm going to send an email to Amy and Erle, and I'll put a bunch of information about Blockwatch, a bunch of resources that will be helpful to you, and also the information on the Real-Time Crime Center, the Connect Seattle. That is for anyone. It doesn't have to be just businesses. If you have a residential security camera system and you want us to know about it, and it'll just be basically, we know that you live on this block and you have security cameras, and that if there were an incident that our investigators wanted to contact you to see if you had video footage, they can get a hold of you. It's that simple. I'll send that information out to you, whether you're a business or a residence. And I'm happy to, I'm glad that there's so much interest in this. Like I said, it's been around for a long time for a very good reason, Blockwatch.
You heard it here first. Well, thank you once again to our speakers. We really appreciate the time you spent with and then for all the community members that came out to share feedback. So thank you so much for everybody's time tonight. We've got a few more things on our agenda, but this will, just as by way of wrap up, as Barb mentioned, the feedback and the information that she sends, any additional feedback from Captain Garth-Green or Councilmember Kettle, I'll get that posted on our website. And if you're not signed up for our newsletter, there's a QR code on each of the tables. So that's really the best way to keep in touch with what we're doing. And this will be an ongoing topic as we continue to build out our Blockwatch network. And for Crockett Street, I'm happy to volunteer to lead the effort for us. Thank you for all of you guys that came out tonight. I think we have a nice informal block watch, because I certainly do. Like, my neighbor will text me and say, hey, your garage door's been open for, an hour or two, so it's just great. It's been a great experience to get to know all our neighbors and look out for each other. So I'll have all that information posted on our website within the next few days, and keep an eye on our newsletter for next steps with this and other community issues that we're working on. So we'll wrap up the safety topic, but for the trustees here tonight, is there any new business that anybody would like to share? Bill, I think, did we cover everything that you had mentioned? Okay. Any other community new business? Okay. Well, do I have a motion to adjourn? All right. Thank you, everybody, so much. We appreciate it.